What if Bigfoot was real? Imagine how that might impact a story. Well, that's what I've got to talk about today. Stick around. Hi, I'm Jim with Fantasy for the Ages, the father of this father son duo who brings this channel to you. Thanks for joining me today for this book blast episode where I'm reviewing a book I just enjoyed, Devolution by Max Brooks. You might know Max Brooks from World War Z, one of the best zombie books out there. Devolution, man, it's just as good in many, many ways. I hope you'll enjoy this episode, and assuming you're going to, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button for us? We appreciate it, and if you haven't subscribed yet, Zach and I invite you to do so. If you haven't read Devolution yet, don't worry. I'm not going to completely ruin it for you. This is just a high-level review, but I'm going to give you some things here that you ought to know going into it. It's going to make it that much more enjoyable for you. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I know the settings described in this book really well because the premise of the book is some people who decide to create this perfect get back to nature, zero footprint, live in harmony with the world community. 6 homes and a common lodge in the middle, and that's all. And they decide to build it way the heck out in the wilderness outside of the Puget Sound area. So Seattle, Tacoma, a very dense, built up part of the Pacific Northwest. But you can drive off into the east and get into some pretty remote areas without too much difficulty. So that's where they decide to build a home. Now, if you've ever visited this area, you know that one of the landmarks is Mount Rainier. There's even a national park around it. But Mount Rainier is this beautiful, huge mountain that shoots up and can be seen from all over the region. It also happens to be a volcano. And those of us who live in this area, I'm closer to Mount St. Helens, so I'm safe. But that's my point. Mount Rainier could erupt at any time. There's no signs that it's imminent, but there never are signs a volcano is going to erupt until there starts to be signs. And so the genuine truth is at some point, Mount Rainier is likely to erupt. And when that happens, there are a whole bunch of dense population areas in the region that are in for a world of hurt. And the builders and the developers keep ignoring it and keep packing in the density. So that's the backdrop upon which this is built. We've got this dense urban area, and there's so much wrong with the way people are stumbling over each other. So this guy has an idea to build this other community. And it's a 90-minute drive outside the dense areas. They have to put in a road to get out to it. So there's only one way in, one way out, impassable region. You're not going to be able to just walk from it. It needed bridges, special to get out there. And then they built a very self-sustaining community. I mean, the entire roofs of each house is a solar panel. They're using their own bio-waste to develop methane for fuel. They really can make do on their own. That's the idea. Not so easily, though, because they still need to have a connection with the outside world. Like once a week, they have Amazon deliveries with all their food and other things they need. They put in a fiber optic cable because most of them are working remotely, but they need that cable. No one has satellite. There's no satellite easily accessible there. I don't know. They just didn't put in satellite. So everything's working pretty beautifully. And then Mount Rainier erupts. Doesn't hurt this community at all. Totally screws up Tacoma, Puyallup, all the communities over there that we know are going to get it. The problem for this community is the eruption cuts them off. It wipes out their one road. It also cuts their fiber optic cable and their way outside cell signal. So they have no way to communicate, help, we're here. Now that's going to be a challenge. There's thousands, potentially millions of people impacted by Mount Rainier going off and disaster relief flooding in to try to help. And the book brings a whole cluster of issues that come to bear that make it really hard to respond to this devastating issue. But this little community of just 6 homes, no one's even looking for it. So they're going to have to try to figure out a way to survive. And everything, would have been hard enough. But then you bring Sasquatch into the picture. That's right, Bigfoot. There are rumors that there truly are Bigfoot that live in the Pacific Northwest, along with other locations around the world. This book makes it very realistic of how it could come about and what the impact might be if, because of conditions from a volcano and a drought, that all the animals start starving, they start moving, and the Bigfoot that hunt them, the Sasquatch, follow them, not just one, a tribe, and happen to stumble along this little community that perhaps looks like food to an alpha predator. When they don't have weapons, they're a bunch of lovers of wilderness, but have no idea how to really live in it. This book is amazing as it tells the story in a way that Max Brooks has used before. World War Z is written as flashback. Same thing here. You're reading chapter by chapter, entry by entry, the journal of one of the people of this community. Now, it's known from the beginning of the book that eventually relief workers get out here and find nothing left, everybody gone, but signs of something terrible having happened. We'll get to that eventually. But what Max Brooks does then is basically the brother of one of the people that was out in this community is trying to find out what happened. What happened to his sister? What happened to everybody out here? And goes on with a series of interviews, talking to different people who were knowledgeable of the area, of the relief efforts, who eventually got on site. And all these interviews are interspersed with readings from the journal of the experience, starting before the eruption and through the devastating actions that take place. It's a gripping, intense story, and you don't know really how it all ends. But you'll have to read the book to find out what that's about. I will tell you, it's a very satisfying ending to this story. I had a blast reading through it. I actually did it on audiobook. It was just 10 hours. I binged it in 2 days, didn't have any trouble with it at all. Easy to follow, very entertaining. There certainly are some moments of violence in here, so, it's not a light, fluffy book, but definitely one I recommend. Devolution by Max Brooks. Check it out. And if you do, or if you've already read it, leave your comments about it here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this fantastic story. If it worked for you, check out the other videos I have recommending books, especially our Book Blast playlist. All sorts of books I've been moving through, as well as my son, that we might recommend to you. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.